Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heal and Restore podcast.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, so we're back. We're sorry for the delay this week. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. Boy, I tell you,
Amateurs we are.
no, we had a really good podcast set up, but um, things happen with this. It just what happened. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
You know what? I think when those things happen, it's God needed it to be said, and maybe not so much for
yeah.
us, but for the person that was your guest.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what he told me. He
Yeah.
says, you know what, Randy, we had a great conversation that I needed.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the beauty of a lot of this.
Yeah.
So we've just learned to go with the flow,
Yep.
right? God's got a reason for everything that happens, but here we are. It's gonna
We're in the
we're
month of
we're in
April.
the month of April,
Yeah.
which is Prevent Child Abuse Month every year.
hmm
And Kathy and I like to do something along those lines, speak on that, and not so much the dark side of it, but we
No.
want to talk about ways that it affects us, ways that we can heal, um,
And prevent.
and
Educate.
prevent and,
It's
and
it's about
educate.
education, really.
100%. It's about education.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
today, what are we going to talk about today,
So
Mrs.
today
Boyd?
we've got a series talking about, Prevent
Hmm.
Child
Hmm.
Abuse Month. And so we're going to talk about breaking the silence and how unspoken childhood trauma can shape us.
Yes.
And, there's been an impact on anybody who's experienced any childhood trauma, especially abuse.
And there's no child that has not
No.
escaped, that has escaped any kind of one form of childhood trauma.
And I'm going to encourage our listeners when you listen to this, listen with an open mind.
Yes.
When we talk about childhood trauma or abuse, it's not just, there's so many forms of abuse.
Yes.
It's not just physical, emotional, there's sexual, there's spiritual. All of us have been affected in some way by one or multiple forms
Correct.
of this type of a trauma.
Correct.
So we're going to just kind of jump into this and welcome you guys in. We want to start out, Randy. You obviously, most people that listen know this, but there are those that it might be tuning in for the first time. Share a little bit about your experience with your own childhood trauma.
So real quick, I'm going to keep it quick because I can drag
You'll
on,
go
right?
on.
I'll go on, right? It's actually my mother was very emotionally and physically abusive to me as a young child.
Yeah.
My parents divorced when I was about 10. Um, and then my mother, after they divorced, met another guy named Jack, and I can say his name, so it's all been cleared. Um, and what happened is about a year after the divorce, that's when my father became ill. We didn't
Mhm.
know, but it was cancer. And then a year later after that, and this at that same time, that's when my mother met Jack, and we'll talk about grooming. I don't know if it's this episode or next episode.
Mhm.
Met Jack. Jack dove into our life, took care of us, did things with us, just
Yeah.
like to have fun. They were both bad alcoholics. I didn't know it at the time. A month after my father died, my stepfather, Jack, who became my stepfather, began sexually abusing me. It
Mhm.
turned from sexual abuse that went right away to spiritual abuse, and I'm talking about this kind of spiritual abuse where where the child within us is
Yeah.
assassinated, right? So the spirit within us is
Mhm.
assassinated. So the spiritual abuse, the emotional abuse, I had the whole gamut.
Yep.
And so I've been there for 38 years. I carried the secret.
Yep.
It was the reason I drank and used drugs.
So
Um,
we can honestly say with that short, brief
right.
intro there that you personally can share experiences. And in
Well,
addition to that, it's been your calling to
yeah,
help people who have
ex
also experienced this.
exactly. And the thing too is that I experienced all that, but what's more important than that is the healing process
Yeah,
I've been on for 20 years.
absolutely.
That's why Kathy and I can talk so much about this
And
because
do what we're doing.
and do what we're doing.
Mhm.
We've been on both sides. We know how hard it is.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So in this episode, we're going to talk about four different
Hmm.
topics or four
Hmm.
different areas, and we're going to start with our first one. Well, actually, let me just kind of briefly go over those.
We got that.
It's
We want to talk about the statistics real quick.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the
So
statistics.
in general, abuse, okay, overall abuse is about one in five kids have been abused in one way or the other. When you go to sexual abuse, it's one in three women, one in three girls, and one in four boys before the age of 18.
hmm
Those are statistics. I have evidence that it's more like 1 to 2.
Yeah, the
So
more you talk to
the more
people,
you
the
talk
more
to
you
people,
realize those numbers are much higher. So,
exactly.
so in this episode, we're going to talk about a few things here. We're going to talk about what trauma looks like. We're going to talk about the power of silence,
Oh,
and we're going to go to signs of unresolved trauma. And then we're going to close out with our first steps to healing
yes.
because it is important that we get to the place of healing.
All right.
So, what trauma can look like. What does trauma look like? There's categories of this. It can be emotional neglect, it can be verbal abuse, witnessing
Yes.
violence, and it's not always visible. It can
No.
also be the sexual, the physical, the emotional abuse that we've talked about briefly that is in
Exactly.
your story.
Exactly.
So what exactly is emotional
So,
neglect? That
well,
that was kind of a new term.
yeah, the emotional neglect, I'm just going to go right to the definition. Emotional neglect refers to the failure to adequately respond to a child's emotional needs, often resulting in a lack of emotional support,
Hmm.
validation, and responsiveness. It can involve neglecting to provide comfort, attention, or affection, and can have lasting effects on a child's emotional development, self-esteem, and relationships,
Yeah.
right? So my mother at a very young age was when I was a very young age, right? Was very emotionally and physically neglecting to me, calling me names a lot of times, uh, shoving soap down my throat for things I
Hmm.
didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
That's all a form of neglect. No child should have soap shoved down their throat.
Hmm.
No child should go up to their mother when she's working in the garden up front, and all I want to do is help, and have her turn around with an ugly face and what do you want, you stupid little
Mm,
SOB.
yeah.
That's neglect,
Yeah.
right?
And it's interesting. You said the wash your mouth out with soap.
Yeah.
Okay. Here I grew up in a home that I thought was a pretty darn good home. My mom and dad were always married till my mom died. We always had all of our needs being met, but I didn't realize until I did some of my step work that I had my mouth washed out with soap multiple times. Now, was I was called Chatty Cathy by my dad, but I was also
Still on Caddy
I
Cat.
still am Chatty Cathy. But I was kind of a mouthy kid. And
Mhm.
so unfortunately, it's not okay. I know that today. I had my mouth washed out with soap
So
several times. So that to me, understanding that today was a form of abuse.
in the Bible, it says, if you cause a little one
Mm,
to fall to sin, you'd be better off with a millstone tied around your neck and
hmm.
cast in the depths of the sea
Right.
to drown.
Yeah.
That's Jesus talking, right? So how did if you're one that's sitting there going, well, I had it done to me and it was okay, I would invite you to go back to that moment. How
Yeah.
did it make you feel?
Yeah.
How angry did you become at your mother or your father at that point in your time, grandmother, whoever it was? Go back to that moment. There's other ways to discipline our children
Yeah.
that it's awful. And soap in many ways is poison,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's not okay to do
No,
that.
not at all. Not at
Okay.
all.
Um,
Other ways that, we can look at trauma is the impact of minimization and invalidation.
right, right.
When we don't feel like we're part of or we belong to a family because we've never been validated.
Never been validated.
Um, what are some of the things I know that you struggled with about
Yeah,
invalidation?
it's never feeling like I was enough. No matter what I did,
Hmm.
it was never good. I haven't told this story in a long time. The spot on the window. Remember that
Oh,
one?
yeah.
I haven't told in a long time. So my mother and stepfather went away to Hawaii for a week, and I wanted to go to Mammoth. And when they were in Hawaii, I asked my stepfather, "Can I use your truck to go to Mammoth with?" And I think, a senior in high school at the time. And he said, "Sure, go ahead." So they were coming home. So the first thing I did is I washed his truck and cleaned it up really good. So when he got home, that's the first thing he would see. He didn't even acknowledge that I washed the truck. All right. So there's no validation there. Right.
Hmm.
And then here's the big thing. I cleaned the entire house, right? And I washed all every window I could downstairs. I couldn't do much on the upstairs. And when he came home, he walked the entire house. And we had a kitchen with a window that was in a corner, right? It was 90-degree window going both ways, and probably 5 foot by 4 foot on both sides. He found one spot on the
Hmm.
window. one spot on the window. And you know what he did? That's all he pointed out. He didn't thank me for anything. Or my mother didn't thank me for any of the things that I did to make sure the house was clean for him, that
Yeah.
the truck was clean for him. There was no validation for that. It was just you missed the spot on the window.
Yeah.
I can never do anything right for them. It was never ever good enough, right?
Right.
So,
That forms trauma.
that's a form of trauma,
Hmm.
emotion, that's a form of emotional abuse. It's like
Hmm.
all I wanted was validation.
Right.
Right,
Right.
just a simple thank you. I don't want a pat on the back, or I don't want blow, windows, I mean, cymbals and drums and trumpets
No,
blowing.
just
I
acknowledge me
just acknowledge me,
and the work
right?
that I've done.
And so, and minimizing the impact of the abuse is like, I tried telling somebody one time that Jack was physically beating me, and they, oh, no, 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 you're talking about somebody
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's devastating. We
Yeah.
hold on to that. It's like, no
Well,
matter what I say, it doesn't matter.
no, and that kind of leads into our final area of this, of what trauma looks like. Trauma hides high achievers
Oh man.
and people pleasers. So, because you have kept in silent,
Yeah.
and we're going to talk about how the power of silence in our next segment here, but how you hide in that and then you overachieve. You do
Overachieve.
everything you can
Right.
to be noticed, to be accepted, to be part of, and people please to a fault.
To a fault,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, if you told me I couldn't do something, oh, that was a challenge,
Yeah, you were going
right?
to do it.
I was going to do it. I had somebody ask me this question. This was a very valid question, and it really made me think. When we ended up having to shut down our business in 2010
Yeah.
for very good reasons, and it was okay. Somebody asked me, Randy, do you think you built your business up to the point that you did? I mean, far more than I thought I would ever achieve as I'll show you, Jack and Judy.
Hmm.
Right? Like kind of a screw you, Jack and Judy. Look how important I am now.
Yeah.
Look at all I've done. And I didn't think about it until that time. And the answer is yeah.
You
So
were proving to
uh,
them,
it,
despite not having a
despite,
relationship with them.
right, exactly. Because we always want to achieve the unattainable of approval of our parents,
Hmm.
right? Even when they're 6 foot in the ground,
You're always seeking that.
right? So it's that minimization, the lack of validation.
Hmm.
And here's what I'll say real quick, and then we'll go to the next one. I look at it this way. There's two roads that survivors go, or I'm going to use the word victims here. The victims go
Hmm.
down, right? They go down the one road where they're overachievers.
Right.
Watch me, watch how good I can do this.
Look what I can
Look
do.
what I can do, right? And
Hmm.
they work really hard. I mean, they just uh, to almost to work, a
Almost
lot of
to,
work
it's to a fault.
to a fault. It's to a fault, right? Or the other path they go down to is they dive deep, deep into the dark side of life, drugs, alcohol. They become homeless. They become, satanic people. So there's two different roads
To avoid
to
and to,
avoid.
yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we always say. People have no
Mm-mm.
idea of the
Yeah.
damage that abuse of any kind does to their children.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the power of silence
Yeah.
because this one is, it's interesting when I saw this and we did this. The power of silence is how the silent actually protects the abuser.
Yeah.
So, if you have been abused and you're a child and you're growing up and in your teenage years, you're still not saying anything, it's ironic, but you're actually protecting the abuser.
You
So,
are.
how many more times is he getting away with abusing others?
Exactly.
And that
Uh,
just kind of hit me. I was like, God, yeah,
so
that's true. We're protecting the person who's hurting us.
I'm gonna, there's a couple of stories I want to say, and the last one I'm going to tell you is really heart-wrenching on my part. Okay.
Hmm.
I can remember my stepfather would say, "Hey, Randy, he had a 1969 orange El Camino, really tricked
Yeah.
out." He goes, "Randy, let's go down and get some milk. I'll let you drive the El Camino down to the liquor store." And this is back in the early 70s, right? And so I said, "Yeah, let's go." And I would go there, and he'd walk out with the milk, and then he'd have a Playboy penthouse and a Hustler magazine he'd throw on the seat, and then he would take me down by the river and do what he wanted to do to me. And then I had to come home. And mom would go, where you guys been? And I would just walk to my bedroom. The shame was just like
Yeah.
overwhelming. So I couldn't say nothing.
Yeah.
And there was one time where we had a big family event, and something happened. I said, Jack, you better shut your mouth. I'm going to tell everybody what you've been doing. And boy, did that cause a ruckus. I didn't say anything
Yeah.
because he turned bright red and I thought he was going to kill me, right? But here's the worst, absolute worst. And I regret this with every fiber of my being. Kathy and at our wedding reception, Kathy and I are sitting on the side talking, and I see my stepfather uninvited walk into the reception.
Hmm.
And behind him was my cousin, right? And he had his head down. He was shuffling, right? And my cousin was very outgoing. He was a happy kid, very outgoing,
Hmm.
all this. And I turned to Kathy and I said, that SOB got to my
Yeah.
cousin, right?
Yeah.
And man, and I couldn't do nothing because couldn't do what I wanted to do because it
No,
was, it was our day,
it was
right?
our wedding day.
So it took many years for me to reestablish my relationship with his mother. Well, my two
Your
steps,
cousin's mother,
my
your
yeah,
nephew.
my
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
with my cousin's mother.
Yeah.
Right. It took many years, and they were my two favorite stepsisters, and I
Mhm.
thought that they wanted nothing to do to me, with me, right? And in fact, they were worried about me for many
Right.
years.
Right.
And I told them that story, and they said, "Randy, I wish you would have said something,"
Right.
because he had abused them,
Yep.
as well as
Others.
others of his grandchildren.
Yeah. So just hearing that, it makes me realize how many people are walking around just protecting that abuser,
Right.
you know.
They're scared to
And then
death.
the other part of this too, of the power of silence, is the emotional toll of keeping the
Right.
peace. I mean, you were constantly walking around in shame, and anybody
Yeah.
who's been abused, if you're if you're being silent, you're carrying this deep, dark secret, and the emotional toll of making sure that you keep your secret on track.
On track.
That and the shame that goes with that. That is
Exactly.
just horrible.
I mean, who's going to believe you,
Right.
right?
Well, then that leads into the final thing that we have here on the power of silence is the common inner dialogue of survivors. Oh, it wasn't that bad. I should be over it. It happens to everybody.
Exactly.
You begin
Right.
starting to
Right.
that dialogue,
I
those tapes
deserved it. I
start,
deserved
yeah,
it.
they start playing in your head.
And that's where over years, now, if we can find somebody in the early years that this happens to, we
Yeah.
can work through this a lot better. It was 38 years, and most victims don't come forward until their 40s, 50s, and
And
60s.
that'll
And
be one of our episodes when we talk
right,
about how it affects
right.
relationships later too.
Exactly. Um, so we walk around all the time saying, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid. We make a mistake, a common mistake that anybody would make
Hmm.
because we're human beings. See, there it is. I'm an idiot, just like I told I was an idiot. I'm never going to be any good,
Hmm.
right? So we're constantly beating ourselves up. And it's because of the emotional abuse, those words,
The silence,
the silence, the inner
carrying the
dialogue,
secrets.
right? It's devastating,
Yeah.
and we have to be able to talk about it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think this next area we're going to go into is the signs of unresolved trauma. There are signs, and if we're not educated, we don't know what to look for. But one of the things, and of course, Randy shared with me about his abuse before we even got married, but I had no idea how to help, what to do, what to look for. It wasn't anything I was exposed to. And so the signs of unresolved trauma is, there's trouble with boundaries,
Mhm.
you carry anxiety, the people pleasing, the self-sabotage. I mean, there's
Mhm.
so many things that go with that. And so share a little bit about some of the things that you struggled with on that.
Um, it's there's some signs you gotta look for. And hold on one second here. I'm gonna pull some stuff up that I got a whole list of them. And all these is signs. They're signs that make it possible that it's possible that they were being abused at one point.
Hmm.
Um, and there's
I
right
think it was
there.
towards the
There,
top,
no, it's
wasn't it?
right
Oh,
there.
there it is.
All
Okay.
right. So here's some signs that you can look for. Now, it's not guaranteeing. I want you to understand. It doesn't 100% mean they were. So basically, like if you have a child that was, he was a well-dressed or she was well-dressed going to school and everything else, and all of a sudden you notice them wearing a lot of baggy clothing.
Even in the summer
Even in the
out here.
summer, man, they got the hoodies on, they got their head down, right? They're hiding their face from people because of the amount of shame they're carrying, right? They feel dirty and don't want to bring any attention to their body,
Yeah.
right? Um, they don't want to shower.
They don't shower often. Yeah.
or they shower way too long
Mm,
trying to scrub the filth off of them, right?
yeah.
They avoid eye contact
Hmm.
because the shame that they're carrying, right?
Yeah.
They don't want you to look in their eyes, right?
Hmm.
There's sudden change in behaviors.
Yep.
And these are signs to look for. They change friends, right?
Hmm.
They
Off or recording still.
Okay, we're still recording, so I hope this kind of flows through um without a problem. Sorry about this. Um they're hiding their face from people again. They're walking around with their head hanging low all the time. Sudden change in behavior
Yeah.
from, it's a change of friends, going from people that maybe they were in church or they're athlete or whatever,
Hmm.
right? All of this, lose interest in sports and hobbies. I mean,
Hmm.
I love
That
playing
was one of the things.
baseball.
Yeah.
And I love playing the guitar, and both of those went out by the wayside, right?
Yeah.
I went from an A student to barely graduating high school. And of course, all of a sudden, drinking and drugging. Now,
Yeah.
some kids drink and drug just to, I got to experiment. So again, and then we can't look at these as absolute things to say they're being abused.
Right.
But, and then you also want to look at cutting and
Yeah.
self-mutilation. And that's a really strong one to look at,
Right.
100%. So we've just got to be aware. We can't ignore some of these signs and say, well, it's just part of who he is. He's just
Yeah.
a kid. He's going through this right now, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then, anxiety is just very common. You
uh,
struggled and can still struggle like on occasion with anxiety
but what I've
and
learned with my anxiety, as you all will know, it's usually my anxiety today is what? Self-induced,
self-induced.
right?
Yeah. But early on, it
It
wasn't.
wasn't,
No,
no.
not at all. Not at all. And the people pleasing and, the self-sabotage, all of that.
Self-sabotage is, that's why I had the affair. I
Yeah.
think we said
You were going
that
to sabotage our marriage.
because I didn't
Mhm.
deserve a woman like Kathy,
Yeah.
somebody that loved me unconditionally. And I would say 90% of our clients, at
Hmm.
least one or both, are trying, they don't realize it,
Right.
but they're self-sabotaging their relationship or marriage because things are going too good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then some of the other trauma responses is the typical we see very common even with some of our clients is that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Right.
And they'll either stay in it and fight, they'll run from it,
Mhm.
flight, they'll freeze, not say anything, and then fawn is that people pleasing, do
Right.
anything to avoid contact or not contact, conflict. So, trauma responses are huge when it comes
It's
to these types of things.
the fight one is huge because a lot of trauma victims, survivors, if they feel threatened in any way, 'cause now they're adults, now they can protect themselves,
Hmm.
right? They're going to want to fight,
Yeah.
right? And it might not be physical, it could be verbal. Like with me, I didn't want to physically fight because of the rage that was inside of me. I was afraid I'd kill somebody. But when I got done with my tongue on top,
Hmm.
slaying you, oh, it was ugly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and then other people just, well, I'm done. I don't like conflict. I'm leaving. Goodbye. You figure this out on yourself.
Yeah.
Or you freeze, right? It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
better
think,
off not saying nothing.
yeah. And this final one that are signs of an unresolved trauma is when an adult struggles to trace back to childhood.
Yeah.
It's very common. And I thought this was quite interesting because you would think that something that traumatic happened to you that you would never forget it. Subconsciously, people will forget it. They struggle to trace back to their traumas. And with a good therapist, a good coach, somebody who's experienced in trauma can help walk with them from that. And you've experienced that in one of your groups,
Yeah.
and with people who have didn't, well, we've had friends, even now that I think about it, we've had people we know that have had trauma, but they couldn't remember their trauma.
Some of our clients have been that way, right?
Hmm.
It's called the repressed feelings. And I honestly believe that's a gift from God for a
Yeah,
lot of
I
people
agree.
because it would be devastating to remember. Until such a time, like when we work with a lot of our clients, they all of a sudden they start going, oh, that's why this is, oh, now I know why I'm
Yeah.
acting this way, right? So we have to tie it in. People go, why do we got to talk about our childhood? That's the root of our issues,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. So we walk people through it. And then as we get ready to close out in this episode, we do want to talk about the first steps of healing.
Right,
It's not just about, okay, this has happened. It's like, now it's happened. We know it's happened. What do we do to start the healing journey?
right.
So, the first thing that is so, so important, I think this helped you start your
Hmm.
healing journey is acknowledge the truth without judgment.
Right.
I was the first person you shared that with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
100%.
I did not judge you. I was the good codependent, started out like, okay, we're going to fix this. We're going to
Right.
make it all better.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what a project I had on my
Uh,
hands. But, first thing you got to do is acknowledge the truth without judgment.
so here's something that's really important to know. My first marriage
Hmm.
was destroyed because of the secret I carried into the
Yeah.
marriage. I think she knew I'd been some emotional and physical. I know she didn't know about the sexual. So I carried all that into that first marriage,
Hmm.
and I was drinking a lot, and it was an absolute disaster. That's why I'm grateful when I sat down with Kathy. I never told anybody before.
Right.
And I honestly believe that's why I 100% believe Kathy was an angel that God put in my
Mm.
life because that day that I told her, it just came out.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, she's got to know, and she's either going to run or she's going to stay,
Hmm.
right? And I didn't know she was going to, try to fix me, but she
I didn't know
stayed.
that either.
She stayed. She's been my biggest supporter through all this. She's been through it to hell and back with me. So
I still love you.
I know you do.
Hmm.
You love me more today
Hmm.
than when we first got married, just like I love
Words in my
you.
mouth there, sir?
Well, I
I
know.
know. It's
We
true.
both do,
It
right?
is true.
So it's you want to build true intimacy, be honest with your
Yeah.
spouse or your lifelong
Hmm.
partner.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing, and again, finding safe people is going to be the biggest thing, but gentle journaling or
Yeah.
speaking exercises. And if you are working with somebody, whether it be a therapist or a support group, coaches like
Right.
ourselves, trusted friends, that's where you can kind of work on this stuff. Being able to talk about your traumas takes the power of what's going on inside your head.
Right.
And so, gentle journaling is a great tool, a great resource to get that out. Speaking exercises, speaking with people that you trust,
Right.
that you've built relationships with, that you might be journeying with. But it's really important that we normalize reaching out, even if it's years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's okay if you've carried this secret for a while, or maybe it's not even an abuse secret. Maybe it's a trauma, a horrible trauma you've
Right.
experienced in
Exactly.
life, and
Right.
you didn't ever want to talk about it because it keeps bringing the memories up. Well, I'm here to tell you that those memories are probably still there.
Yeah.
And even though you may not think of them every single day,
Who?
your body tells you they're there, your actions tell you they're there.
Right.
So normalize reaching out, even if it's a long time.
So, here's a simple example, right? So, maybe when you were in your teenage years, younger or a young adult, maybe you experienced a bad car accident,
Hmm. Yeah,
right? And
perfect
so,
example.
yeah, that's a form of trauma. And so now you're married, you're driving with your spouse, maybe you're driving downtown LA
Mm,
or Chicago, wherever you're at, and man, you just get panicked. You get all stressed out. You're slapping your husband on the thing. Hey, stop, stop, stop. Watch out, watch out.
mm,
What in God's name is wrong with
yeah,
her, right? This is ridiculous. I'm a safe driver, so on and so
yeah.
forth. She needs to let her husband know, her partner, whoever, I'm
Hmm.
using that, hey, look, when I was a young kid, I got in a really, really bad car accident in a situation like this. So when I'm driving here and my reactions are coming at you that way, that's where it's coming
Yeah.
from. Now she's spoken her truth or he has spoken the truth to their spouse or partner. Now there's some understanding. It's like, okay, all
Yep.
right, what can I do to make this easy
Yeah.
for you?
No, that's really
Right?
good. I love that. So as we close out now, I just want to remind you, your story matters. It is
Yes. Yeah.
important. Your voice matters, and it's never too late to speak your
No.
truth. Thank God you spoke your truth to me
Yeah.
all those years ago.
No. And it
But
still took years to get help.
it did. It took years to get help, and we're still on the journey, and
Yeah.
and that's okay too. So I want to do a little call to action here. I love this idea of inviting you to journal one truth that you've never said out loud. So get your journal out and think about one truth that you've never shared with anybody, that you've never said out loud, and journal about that. And I would love to hear how it affected you.
Yes.
You can leave a message at our website or at our email. Let's go to our
Yes,
email
our
at
email.
healandrestorecounseling@gmail.com. You can even leave it if you're listening or watching on Spotify. It gives you an option to comment.
Comment.
But yeah, we would love to hear how journaling one truth that you've never spoke out loud made you feel. Um, it's just start that. Just start there. Start small. Start with little baby steps. And if you find that it helped you and you want to continue on that journey, please reach out to us and visit our website too.
Yes.
There's a lot of testimonies in there, information you can find in our website at www.healandrestorecounseling.com.
And we got our discovery session.
We have, we do a 1 hour discovery session. This is going to be our ongoing thing. So if you're looking for a coach, a mentor, somebody that you can work with, whether it's a relationship or maybe it's individual,
Addiction, trauma,
we offer a 1 hour discovery session. It's a no-cost discovery session to you. And what it does is it allows you to open up, let us get to know you. You get to know us. We'll share a little bit more about ourselves. We want to make sure we're right fit because when we're going on a journey of healing, we want to make sure we've got the right people on our team that are going to walk with us and guide us through that. So we would love to have you check out our website. And if that's you, go ahead and reach out to us. We'll get back in touch with you to schedule that discovery session. Also, just a reminder, you can find us and follow us on all of our social media platforms, both Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Check it all out. Make sure you share this with others. If you feel like this is something that that you feel will help somebody else, make sure you share our podcast with others. We try to put these out, we do put these out every week. And so we would love to have new listeners come into that. And then I just want to tell you, we're still in April. So we have a new episode coming out next week that is a continuation of our April Prevent Child Abuse Month. And we're going to talk about how prevention starts at the home, how we can create a safe space for our children.
Yes.
If you are a parent or a grandparent, you want to tune in. If you are a newly married couple and you're going to have children, you're going to want to tune in. Unfortunately, this is an epidemic that is...
It's a pandemic. Actually.
Pandemic, yeah. It's just all too familiar. There's too much of it out there. And so we want to do our part to educate caregivers on how they can purposely protect and empower our children. Yeah, so...
And we got our books.
Yep.
We got How to Heal, The Healing the Wounded Child Within. We got and that's in
Renewing Bonds.
Hold on. How to the Healing the Wounded Child Within is in Spanish and in English.
Yes.
Right. That's and then we have How to Heal and Restore Your Marriage. We have Renewing Bonds. We got one other one that we're going to release probably this month, right? And I'm writing. I actually finished writing The Healing Path, a survivor's.
Survivor's Guide to Healing.
So there it is. I wrote it. I can't. Yeah, Survivor's Guide to Healing.
Yeah.
It's in the final stages right now, and I have my next marriage book all laid out.
Yep.
It's going to be quit
we have a
taking
lot
things
of
personally.
You've been doing a lot of work. So
And those books are all available on Amazon.
yeah, check out Amazon. You can go to our website and also purchase them through there as well.
And they're available in multiple formats,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So we hope this has helped you. We know that this is always a difficult subject sometimes to talk about, but the main thing is to educate.
yes.
We want to get the word out there on what parents, grandparents, just people in general, the whole community, society as a whole, what they need to know about trauma and how it affects our children and how it affects us as adults.
So, hey, and remember, like, share, follow, and please subscribe to our channels. We want to take this bigger. We want to make it better, right? And so we need to, we're trying to monetize this so that we can expand and grow this.
Yep, absolutely.
We can't do it on our own. We do this out of our heart. We're going to keep doing it, but just
help us out.
Help us out.
Help a friend out.
Help a friend out, will you please? And then share this, even if you don't think the person is going to listen to it. Just share it with them.
Give them an opportunity to make that decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yep.
We do it well. We got it all done. Good. Take a deep breath.
Okay.
All right. So remember this. Nobody tells you they love you today. Randy does.
Kathy does.
More importantly, God does. Be blessed, everybody, and have a fabulous rest of the week.
Yeah.